Well, hello everyone. Here to show you the Sweet Dreams Moon sketch right here. It's like talk about say like a black and white sketch, and basically that also known as like say a drawing. And basically that I went ahead and drew this moon picture right here of showing right here is like a ring right here, and along with say with the moon, and then some stars. And I went ahead and drew and sketched this looking at a photo, but of course that like the ring, and then of course the stars were just some of the things that extra features of course that I added. But you have right here is like what I go ahead and call for Sweet Dreams Moon. But if anybody has seen from the previous videos from several years ago, and knowing about what I have on of course on my YouTube playlist, is knowing about that it's like with besides say for Dream Moon and Blue Moon and Star Half Moon and Star and stuff like that, but so far as talking about is like the type of moon though. If anybody is familiar with like what's called if it's Neil Armstrong or anybody who landed on the moon and then were able to explore, but we could probably think about, I'm like, yeah, that really is the moon really a planet? I guess it's not really gas. It's not really like a ball, a big ball of gas inside of burning in space. It is, but on your hand, I guess it's like a mineral. I guess if you call it like maybe a planet, say for mineral or something like that, for its surface, but. That type of stuff that of course you may have learned in science class, and along with if psychology and those type of subjects. But anyway, that right here, I taught to say for Dream Moon right here, and I went ahead and while I was sketching this, I was also thinking about knowing about the detail that I went ahead and put in, using right here is I'm gonna be see here the black. The extra black, and then I'll be using is the 5B. If most of us have seen from my latest activities, the 5B pencil, and then along right here would be is like the 4B pencil, and then is like the charcoal. And a lot of times that you have these see here these four different pencils right here, and anybody may wonder, I'm like, yeah, that if I can remember right, that I may have one more around, but anyway. I have about four different pencil types right here that I used for the details right here of the moon. And basically though that whenever I drew this picture right here is like usually that we would see like a ring around the moon. And a lot of times it's like so far I guess it's called you say the crescent, not the crescent moon, but I think harvester. I guess the harvester type moon, but harvester moon. But anyway, or crescent moon or something like that. But anyway, where there will be, let's say, a ring of a moisture. I guess if it's a moisturized vapor, water vapor that's in space or something like that forms, you say that ring. And I can tell anybody here that a couple of times out of a night I have seen a ring around at the moon, and a lot of times, unless if you have like one of those digital cameras to where you can actually capture that type of a ring span, and knowing about you can't really see it from by camera. And more likely they say that it's possible you may have to adjust and do some changes on your camera just to be able to take that perfect safe photo, like including the ring. But anyway, but you have right here is the moon right here, and I'm gonna draw right here. We see right here is like say a blue and some and besides blue, I talk about working right here is like say kind of like black and white work, but talking about is that usually we would see these markings right here for the moon, and with the markings that the markings would show at about right here. If we looked at the moon closely and knowing about these may just be if we were to look at moon from Earth, to space, and knowing about, I'm like, yeah, exactly about what do these markings usually mean, that they may show up a little bit in blue, but at the time, you're like wondering that I even heard that, like, say, the moon. That the moon may have maybe a few rocks, rocky surfaces, or, some place, something like that, like, dried surfaces, but, dirt and then rumble, stuff like that. But anyway, you probably think about from how far the moon is from the Earth, and and just thinking about that, yeah, that talking about, I'm like, yeah, if we were thinking about dreaming about space travel, is knowing about the type of surface part of the moon, and I'm gonna go ahead and use right here's the 5B pencil, and then those are like the darker surfaces, and then I used a little bit of the eraser just to kind of show us like the lighter tone right there is like for the Earth, and for the moon, from Earth, and basically that. I don't know, I'm like, to make this look kind of a little bit like a super moon, I'm like, I guess there's maybe a way to do that, maybe like on Photoshop, if anybody were to, actually want to draw a picture of the moon and actually do some editing, using the Photoshop program, but right now, this is on sketch paper, and I'm going to go ahead and, use right here is a little bit of lighter tone right here for the moon, and if anybody has had practice with this and knowing about just to lightly shade a little bit right here just to kind of give it that that roundness type look to the moon. And a lot of times though, anybody that may think that if we were to try to draw the moon, that it seems really hard knowing about exactly the basic steps that we need to follow, knowing about between following realism and then knowing about what we're working with is when we're working with trying to make the moon look real, like it's really round and on your hand to the type of shape, and then knowing about the type of color it is, and anybody that may think I'm like, yeah, that if it's in black and white, then more likely it would look like maybe the early 60s or 70s type picture, but on your hand, I can tell anybody here that really anybody from the back in the 1960s and 1970s draw like this and knowing about, I'm like, yeah, they really hard to judge, but I'm like any of those artists that may have had like say cloth or any type of posterized materials that they use, but anyway, but work right here is a little bit of pencil right here, and to go ahead and do is that just add some shading quality right there like for the moon, and if I want to go ahead and see here, I use the charcoal, I'll go ahead and use the extra black right here and just color it, but just knowing about what say with the dream mode. And if anybody were to think about you go to bed at night, a lot of times the kids will go to bed at night and go ahead and use a little bit of the eraser just to kind of cut, but anyway, if you had like at nighttime, if you had a night light, anybody probably think I'm like, yeah, I had a night light where it would project, maybe an image of the moon, and I can tell anybody here that I think that would be something that would be kind of cool. I'm like, talk about. I'm like, really, the whole purpose about night lights. If you were to get a night light, and then let's just say that with the night light, that it would be able to project. It's like a image about what the moon actually looks like. But a couple times I looked at it and then I kept thinking about maybe there's like a looks kind of like maybe like a face or something like that appearing like on the moon. But anyway, I call this kind of like say a face type work right there. I'll go ahead and add that for the moon. But anyway, a whole purpose about talking about the mission to Mars or anything like you say that if it's like a science fiction type story movie, but on the other hand, and knowing about that a type of moon to where that anybody probably think that I'm like, yeah, that if you actually draw it and then kind of have it like an alarm clock, or if it's like anything that's related to a night light, that you can to where the moon actually looks like it's floating, like you actually to where it glow, and glow type moon. And I'm like, yeah, that the way I went ahead and drew the outline right here using charcoal, and I can go ahead and right here is I usually right here just to kind of give it like say that white balance, because usually around the moon that there's like say a white balance, and I'll just use my fingers and you use my finger right here and go ahead and rub a little bit of the black just to kind of say that white balance. But I would probably suggest like yeah that with anybody, if you an eraser, or if you don't want it to the charcoal or the pencil art to get on your fingers either. I'm like, if you can tell that, I'm like, yeah, that kind of gets on on the fingertips. I'm like, you're talking about. I'm like, yeah, that what's more cleaner. I talk about, I'm like, yeah, you're working with clay, and I guess you're going to get your hands dirty if you're going to be working with, say, with clay. But on your hand, I'll be the way I think about it, holding the page, holding the paper in place too. But just kind of blend in. Go ahead and give it, like say, put a little bit of a rub, the charcoal, around the surface of the moon. You just kind of give it. It's like if there was actually, like, yeah, come out like anybody may think. I'm like, yeah, that it's like with the surface of the moon. Go ahead and rub it a little bit right there. If anybody probably saying, I'm like, yeah, rub it, and then if you want to go ahead and wipe the charcoal off your fingers, and if you have a spare washcloth or something like that around, if you want to clean your finger, and just kind of rub around. And I don't know, I keep thinking though that if you were to rub the artwork anywhere, just to kind of remove a lot of dark spots, just to kind of give it, so that if you call it blending, or if it's a transforming, the color type. But anyway. But you have right here is like, say, the surface of the moon, and then basically, if anybody probably think, I'm like, yeah, there's such thing as what you call, there's such thing as space travel, but then maybe there is no such thing as time travel. But on the hand too, that knowing about the whole, basically, is science, about knowing about exactly about the whole purpose of, like, knowing about, say with the sweet dreams. So I say with the moon, like, talk about the measuring stick for the distance, from, like, talking about, it's like how far the moon is, like, how many measuring sticks, the lengths of the measuring stick, knowing about how far is, like, from the moon. It's like from Earth to the moon. But other than that, like, talk about here is like the sweet dreams. To say, the drawing of the moon is like, say, with the sketch drawing activity.